Welcome back to week 5 of the Degenerate Gambling episode of Free Tendies Fantasy. I'm here with Yanni,
What's up, man?
and we're here to give you guys some winners. So let's do our week 4 recap. I'll go ahead and start. 5-0 week. The King is back. Never a doubt. All my picks are perfect. I guess I'll go through them one by one. The Jaguars in London against the Falcons. They covered pretty easily. Desmond Ritter's not good at football. It's a bummer. The Vikings -4.5. That one was a consensus of me and Yanni, and was kind of a sweat. Kirk Cousins threw a pick six in the Panthers end zone, and they returned it, and it was like way too close. But we got the cover. Thank God. The Bucks and Saints under 39.5. I believe what I said on that game was the Bucks will not be able to break the Saints 20 points allowed streak, and I figured the Saints offense was going to stink too. Gun to my head, I think the Saints win. I got a lot of things wrong about that game. The Saints got blown out by the Bucks. The Bucks did beat the Saints 20 points allowed streak, but it was still under 39.5 because Derek Carr looks like a half a man with his AC joint. The Bills -3 against the Dolphins. This is probably my favorite pick of the week. There's kind of a doubt like for the first quarter when it was back and forth, and then Josh Allen just took over. I think that you know if you're a home favorite, it's only 3 points. Like just fade the public there. I thought that was awesome. And then the Seahawks -1.5. That one, never a doubt either. Really, the Giants are really, really, really bad. It's like they're terrible. So yeah, I mean, I remember when we were breaking down this game, I was kind of asking like, why is the line like this? And I thought there was maybe something I didn't know. That was just a freebie. I'll take it.
Okay, so as you can see, I'm now in the red. I had my first losing week ever picking games, so I'm kind of bummed out about it, but still have a winning record overall. We'll see if I can rebound this week. Vikings, Ted covered that. Eagles, I took two big favorites this week, and I guess when you bet like that level of win in the NFL, when you're betting that sort of margin, I guess that's sort of the risk you take in the Eagles and the Chiefs against the Redskins and the Jets. Um, I, Not much to say about those games. Both those teams played really hard. I probably should have known the recent history with the Commanders and the Eagles. It was probably a little bit riskier of a pick than I had thought. So probably just silly betting on my part. The Bengals at the Titans was the one that stunned me. A really poor pass defense getting just chewing Joe Burrow apart. I mean, it was 3-27. That game wasn't close. Total miss by me. I think it says probably a lot more about the Bengals than it does about the Titans, but we'll see this week. And then the Chargers 4.5. That was really just Aiden O'Connell and Khalil Mack. Again, that probably was not the smartest bet on my part, to be honest with you. The Chargers are really freaking me out this year. But they did manage to get it done. I'm in the red, $159. Ted, after his giant week, is almost up to $600 in profit. He's hit two parlays in a row, and he hit a fiver this week. So Ted's on fire. I can't take anything away from him, man. He's killing it.
Listen, boys, we give these away for free. We're not charging you. You know. Anyways, here are the week 5 picks. I've got the Falcons -1.5, the Colts +2.5, the Saints and Pats under 39.5. I'm going back to the Saints under wagon. I'm just riding it. The Chiefs -3.5, and the Packers money line. And actually, the Packers odds are wrong. Hold on, let me. I'm pulling it up on FanDuel right now. The line moved in between the time that I made the bet, I made the slides or whatever, and now I believe now it's +110 for the Packers money line, so it got even better for me, which is great. That means there's some money coming in on the Raiders, which I don't know why. Yeah, it's. Can you guys see? No, maybe not. But it's +114 is the odds now for that, so I'm getting a little bit more juice on it. The numbers are kind of scuffed here on the parlay. I'll update it later. Other return is $381.82 for a total potential return of $1,103.60 on a 5-0 week. Ticket cost is $300 this time because I'm parlaying 3 games together instead of 2, and we're sitting at 12, 6, and 2. Like, what is that? 66% winning percentage, I'll take it. And we're sitting at like $600 in the green this year. I doubt it will stay this good for this long, but you know, just got to keep gambling correctly, and hopefully we'll just stay above 500 and stay in the green, and it's a successful season.
All right, mine this week, I have the Bills -5.5 over the Jags. I have the Texans +1.5 at the Falcons. Miami at 11.5 at home over the Giants. Cardinals at +3 at home over the Bengals. And the Niners at -3.5 at home versus the Cowboys. I'm wagering 300 this week, trying to win 681. I'm 9-8-3 on the year, and I'm at about a negative $160 after my tough week last week. And I am parlaying some games this week to try to close that gap, so we'll see how it goes. Okay, this one's mine. This game's really just a matter of momentum and then personnel. Bills at -5.5, so more or less a touchdown, but also 2 field goals will get it done. 94% of the money's on the Bills, so the larger wagers are all coming in on them, as well as 76% of the bets. So both public sentiment and the whales are kind of together on this one. Basically, it's a momentum thing. Josh Allen is smashing spreads right now. He did it against the Dolphins. Were probably the team I would say in the NFL were the most surprising team this year because just of how good they looked, and like they were all of a sudden cropping up in Super Bowl predictions all over. And he went in there or not went in there, but they came into him and got it done. I expect the same thing to happen with the Jaguars this week. It is technically a Bills home game, but it's really not. It's actually more of a Jaguars home game in London. I don't think that'll matter. The Jaguars do not look right offensively. Calvin Ridley's not really firing. Etienne's not really firing. Trevor Lawrence isn't. And this is a nasty defense, man. This is a defense that just stuffed what I think was the hottest offense in football. So the difference in momentum between the quarterbacks, the difference in the defensive staffing, and 6 to 7 point gap, yeah, I'll take the Bills all day on that.
Yeah. My only comment on this one, and we kind of talked about this before we pressed the record button too, is just the Jaguars have been in London since their last game, so I figured they'll be a little less jet lagged or whatever, so that's why I stayed away from it. But I love the Bills. I think that's probably the right side. All right, next we got the Texans going into Atlanta to play the Falcons. This is a free Tendies head-to-head. It's our third one of the season. I'm taking the Falcons -1.5, and Yanni is taking the Texans +1.5. The over-under on this game is 41.5. 79% of the money is on the Texans, and 82% of the bets are on the Texans. So I'm going against not only my co-host Yanni here, but the public and the whales. I mean, so far this year, I'm 2-0 on these head-to-heads. So let's argue about the game. Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first? Why do you like the Falcons in this one, or why do you like the Texans in this one?
So it is kind of hard, right? Because the Falcons actually, at least at fantasy ranks, are kind of a proxy for overall production. The Falcons have actually been pretty good at stuffing receivers this year. So you look at Tank Dell, you look at Nico Collins, and you try to figure out exactly how much room are they going to have to operate. And obviously CJ Stroud's been pulling a lot of weight for him this season. In general, I think that D'Amico Ryans is a very good defensive mind. I think that Desmond Ridder is very limited. I think that the Texans are on fire right now. And I think that the Falcons feel like they're kind of sputtering a little bit. They've dropped 2 in a row here. And for whatever reason, Arthur Smith he can't get it right. He doesn't use his weapons right. I was just joking with you before the show. They are #1 in the NFL in targeting tight ends through 4 weeks. And Kyle Pitts has like 5.5 fantasy points a game. They prefer Jonnu Smith over Kyle Pitts. Drake London's, it's in the dumps. I think there is probably, as funny as it is to say this early on, I give a large coaching edge to the Texans staff. I think they've shown they're competent NFL coaches. I think CJ Stroud has shown he's a competent NFL quarterback to this point. And I actually think Damian Pierce has really been getting it going. And that is what this offense wants to do. And it's no coincidence they start winning games when that's going on. They want to pound the ball. They want to get their play action going. It's the 49ers system. It's that Shanahan system. So, yeah, it's just I think the Texans will be able to put up points on the Falcons, and I do not believe the Falcons have any ability to get in a shootout at this point.
All right. Yeah, that's fair. Definitely like the way CJ Stroud has looked. But I don't want to say by far because him and Richardson have both looked great. But yeah, he definitely looks like a legit quarterback. And yeah, the Falcons are coming off two tough losses. The Texans are coming off two pretty solid wins that they were underdogs in both of them, and they're underdogs again today. To me, this game really comes down to a couple of things. Just for the Falcons, right? This Texans team is traditionally terrible at stopping the run. Last year they were 32nd out of 32 teams at stopping the run, and this year they haven't been much better. And as much as I like to make fun of Arthur Smith and his Army Navy style like college football offense, quite frankly, like the matchup is there for this one. So I think that this could be a Bijan Robinson explosion spot. This could be if Arthur gives him the ball. Like this could be like the number one overall fantasy running back performance you might have been looking for all year. And then the Falcons defense I think is solid, right? Like the Texans have struggled to run the ball. They've had some success against the Steelers last week. I think Damian Pierce was like 21 carries for 80 yards or something. He just came off the injury report yesterday for like a knee bruise or whatever. And this Falcons line is pretty good. Calais Campbell is a monster. You know, I don't see Damian Pierce like having much success running on him. So to me, it comes down to like, is CJ going to be able to just throw on this Falcons team and just outscore him that way? Which I mean he could, but this Falcons team has already played a rookie quarterback in Week 1 and Bryce Young, and they made him look silly. So I don't know. I could see maybe Jesse Bates jumping a pass or two, maybe just getting him a little bit more off kilter. And then especially if the Falcons take a lead in this one, because their running game is so strong and the Texans struggle to stop the run, I could see them just taking the air out of the ball. Say, for example, the Falcons are up 13-3 in the first half. I think it could be hard for the Texans to even get the ball back. But we'll see. I mean, I don't love the pick, so it wasn't in my parlay, and I'm against the public here very strongly, and my co-host. So, you know, I don't love it, but I did like the Falcons coming into this year, and I like some of the things they do. Not all of them, but some of them I think they do exceptionally well. So.
I mean, I love the Falcons, dude. You know my thing about them. I'm just shocked at how much Ritter has failed to make any sort of move forward, anything, any level of like jump at all. It's just not there. Also, you know, they stuffed Bryce Young because all indications are he's not a very good NFL quarterback. That's probably what it is. Fun fact for the Panthers fans: they traded DJ Moore and Bryce Young for Caleb Williams. That was actually what they traded. Excuse me, they traded Caleb Williams and DJ Moore for Bryce Young. That's what the trade is as of now.
It's a good deal. It's a good deal, man.
Really think about that. So that the Trey Lance trade, the worst trade in the history of the NFL, it might have been topped like this year. Like, go ahead. Just had to throw it up.
Oh, and one other fact for this game: Desmond Ritter is undefeated at home. If you're a trends better, I don't know. It's interesting.
He's like Manning. Okay, this one's mine. Really not a whole lot to say here. I feel like I'm not very interesting this week because I think a lot of these games are just sort of they're self-explanatory what you're betting. And on this one, 97% of the money and 91% of the bets are on the Dolphins. 11.5 over the Giants. They're at home. They're on fire. They just got beat, and I assume they're probably a little bit emotional about that if I had to guess. The Giants they look dead in the water. It's like this thing's an emergency all of a sudden. Saquon might be back. He might not. It looks like he's going to play. But he's coming off a high ankle. High ankles usually take 4 to 6 weeks and then really 3 to 4 months to totally clear, so I don't expect him to be at 100%. I think the way that I see this game going is pretty straightforward. The Dolphins get a 10-point lead, a 13-point lead, and from there the pass rushers get cut loose. I don't see any way that the Giants keep the game close enough to be competitive. I think the Miami is going to jump out to a comfortable lead and tee off on Daniel Jones, just like has happened the last few weeks. The Giants look like they're in pretty serious trouble, and the Dolphins look like they're playing for a Super Bowl this year. Whether they get there or not, that's what they play like a team that wants to win the Super Bowl this year. The Giants do not. For all those reasons, I'm actually very comfortable in this bet. That's why it's in my parlay along with the Bills. I really Who knows? I guess last week I saw the Jets play the Chiefs down to the wire. So stranger things have happened, but I would be shocked if this is in any way a competitive game.
Well, that's fair. How worried are you about MVP Saquon coming off the injury
It's
report and playing here? Like, are you worried at all?
worried about
Because
Saquon or worried about the Dolphins?
worried about like Saquon being able to score points on the Dolphins.
I don't see any way that he will be his explosive self. And even if he were to be that, I mean, what would the line move down to? Maybe 9.5 if he was like on fire right now. Like that's the absolute best the line I could see being.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't think that'll be dude. That's their whole team right now. That's their whole team. And the only good game Saquon has had this year was against Arizona. And again, high ankles are brutal, dude. Austin Eckler said he still cannot cut laterally right now. It's been like four or 5 weeks for Eckler. And Saquon is hurrying back, right? But he was really, really unproductive the last season when he tried to come back from a high ankle like 2 or 3 years ago. I'm not worried about it.
Yeah, he definitely like his history coming off a high ankle is not great. He hasn't performed at his highest, but I just looked back at the Giants and Cardinals game, which was the only game that the Giants had a pulse in for part of, and it was like basically centered around Saquon getting going. So I
Yep.
think you're right. 11.5. I stayed away from this one just because it's a ton of points. Like, I don't know. I think that's probably the right side, but laying 11.5 is tough for me.
I think it's going to be a boat race.
Probably. All right, next we got the Titans at the Colts. There's a lot of notes here because I felt like I had some explaining to do on this one. I'm taking the Colts plus 2.5. The over/under on the game is 42.5. 37% of the money is on the Colts, and 44% of the bets are on the Colts. So I'm kind of fading the public again on this one. For me, Anthony Richardson and Michael Pittman have a really good matchup here against the Titans' pass funnel D. Basically, the Titans looked really great last week. They only gave up 3 points, but I'm chalking that up to Joe Burrow just being a one-legged quarterback and unable to throw the ball down the field versus the Titans actually having a formidable defense. Richardson has looked good. Michael Pittman's had a breakout year. I'd look for the Step Brothers to get it going in this one. Jonathan Taylor's returning too. How will he look, and what will the usage be? I'm not sure how mad the Colts are as a franchise at Jonathan Taylor for the trade demands and all the stuff he pulled in the offseason. So I'm kind of interested to see if they even let him play, like if they let him like be featured or whatever. But like if he plays, it's definitely a upgrade over Zach Moss. This Titans rush D is really good. It's tops in the league, but I'll just be paying attention to that, seeing like what the snap count is for Jonathan Taylor. The secret is out on Mike Vrabel as a underdog. I mentioned it last week to Yanni in the Titans and Bengals game that he picked. Mike Vrabel is the most profitable underdog coach in gambling since he's taken over as the Titans coach. So, I mean, I think right now there's a lot of people that are seeing how profitable Mike Vrabel is, right? And kind of valuing the team a little bit more versus what the roster actually is. So really, when you break it all down to me, I'm taking a home divisional dog with a perceived roster advantage. Like, I mean, I'll take it. And for like the coaching aspect, right? Because like that's the whole selling point with this Titans team. If you're betting on this Titans team, you're betting on Mike Vrabel, and you're betting on this team being well coached. Quite frankly, I think Shane Steichen is the real deal. The Colts have been frisky all year and kept games close. I mean, I'll take it. It's good enough for me. Richardson has been up and down at points this year. The first half against the Rams did not look good. He's had other halves where he has not looked good. So, I mean, ups and downs are to be expected. It wouldn't shock me if, like, Richardson just plays terrible out of nowhere and the Colts don't even come close to covering. But I mean, just taking all the factors into account, I like Indy in this spot. That's why it's gambling, right? Like if I had the sports almanac, I'd just pick the right one here. But I like the Colts, and I'm an Anthony Richardson fan. I've come around on the kid. I remember I used to give Yanni shit in the offseason because he was talking about how much he loves Anthony Richardson. And I was like, dude, his stats aren't even good from Florida, but man, he's won me over already, 4 games in. So tip the cap to you, sir. Good talent evaluator.
Yeah, man, I always loved Richardson. I think you have the right side, and I think you made really good arguments. If I had to bet, I would bet the Colts in this one. Elite defensive mind in Vrabel. I think that's pretty. I mean, he's doing a lot with not a lot of talent. Ability to stuff the run. Rookie quarterback. There's just enough things going on there that I stayed away from it. I did take a look.
Next, we got the Saints and Patriots. I'm taking the under on this one again. Second week in a row, I'm taking a Saints under. 60% of the money is on the under, and 29% of the bets are on the under. So I'm mega with the sharps here. And shout out to Adrian for bringing the value of unders to my attention. Last week he was at Lambeau and shot me a spreadsheet. I was looking at his numbers, and geez, the under looked like a pretty profitable type of bet to make. And I think I've identified one here where the number is just too high. We got the Pats offense featuring McCorkle and Ramondre Stevenson and, I don't know, Devontae Parker and Kendrick. The banged up Carr with his messed up AC joint versus the injured Patriots defense. So the Patriots lost Christian Gonzalez and Matthew Judon. Christian Gonzalez is out for the year. Matthew Judon, I'm not sure if it's a year-long thing or not, but he's going to be out for a long time. The Patriots just signed J.C. Jackson, but he's not going to be playing in this game. But really, Carr looks so banged up to me, I don't think it matters. Bill is still a good defensive coach, so I think I'd be shocked to see the Saints score more than 20 points in this one. The Saints have scored 1 offensive touchdown all year, I think. Is it 1? No, maybe it's like 2 or 3. I think the Saints have maybe like 3 offensive touchdowns this year, something like that. These are 2 defensive-minded coaches. Dennis Allen's a big dumb stooge, but he's a defensive coach. That's what he does. That's the way he calls games. That's kind of why I think he's a stooge, is because he can't get out of his own way with the offense, which has pieces in it. Bill, both of these teams are in the top 10% of drives ending in punts. So these teams punt a lot because their offenses aren't good. So I'd expect an uninspired defensive matchup where, 4th and 1 from the other team's 30-yard line, they're kicking field goals and stuff. I don't really see this one getting too crazy. I didn't want to pick a side on this. I hate both of these teams. I think they both stink. I really don't like them, but I love the unders because I hate their offenses so much. You got anything on this one, Yanni?
No, shout out Jim Norton from the Opie and Anthony show. He stinks and I don't like him. No, it's a good call. I think that's certainly the right. If you had to bet the over under, I think it's certainly the right call. Watch the Pats go off for 40. I think that's a great bet. Okay, Bengals and Cardinals. I'm taking the Cardinals by 3 at home. They get a 3 points at home. Close one, 54% of the money and 44% of the bets are on the Cardinals. I do not think Joe Burrow's healthy. I really don't. That calf strain is like a 6 to 8 week injury. He suffered it in August. And he's been playing on it. So one would assume an even more extended timeline. He has not looked right. The offense hasn't looked right. Jamar Chase is currently 6th in the NFL in targets, and he's 28th overall in half PPR points. It's just a mess. In general, I think the Bengals are really at their lowest they've been all year. And dude, the Cardinals are out here playing really good teams really tight. Really, really tight. They should have beaten the Giants. They beat the Cowboys. They played the Niners to a great game. And Josh Dobbs actually looks fantastic so far this year. Not amazing, but he's so much better. People thought they were intentionally throwing their season when they signed him. And he's come out and looked good. I actually think probably Jonathan Gannon's a legit head coach. I think that's a big part of it. He kind of looks like he's got like a creepy serial killer thing going, man. He wears those glasses with that. He's got like a jagged looking face. He's very serious looking dude, man. I was watching him when the Niners played. I'm like, oh my God. I take their organization seriously. I think their weapons are firing. I think Marquise Brown has looked really good. I think James Conner's actually looked pretty good. And that rookie, man, Wilson is top 10 in a bunch of significant metrics for wide receivers so far this season. They might have found themselves a gem in that kid. And if Josh Dobbs is feeding his weapons like that and they're rolling, the Bengals are not capable of getting in a shootout this year. They won extremely ugly against the Rams. That's it. So I think their franchise is in a really tough position so far this year. And I'll take the momentum. I'll take the guy who can get the ball to his weapons for so many reasons. I'm totally comfortable betting the Cardinals at home.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't think of a game that is more like the momentum seems to be with you on your pick. The Cardinals are so much better than everybody pegged them to be, and it just seems like the Bengals are very, very, very bad right now. At least until Joe Burrow figures it out. So yeah, I like this pick. This feels to me like one of those ones that could get squirrely. That's why I didn't bet it. But yeah, I'd like to see the Cardinals win here for sure. Like they, for as hard as they've played, they deserve a couple more wins. And also, too, the other thing I wanted to mention: can you imagine like Jonathan Gannon and Sirianni in the same room together? Like how just like meme filled that would be. That'd be awesome, man.
Yeah, well, so like the risk is right, and this risk is going to exist every week with the Bengals until they're consistent. Joe might come out. It might just be like, oh, Joe Burrow's normal again, and it's 340 yards and 4 touchdowns. Like we just don't know. And Jamar Chase might have a 200-yard week. That's going to happen at some point this year. Maybe not 200, but 150. And at some point the offense is going to get right, or Joe Mixon's going to bust a 70-yard touchdown or something. They have all the weapons. It is risky when you're betting on these guys right now. I thought it would be last week. I thought it would be with that really soft pass defense. That was why I took that bet. I think Joe's actually pretty injured, dude. That's probably a big part of it. I think he's probably playing when he shouldn't be. And so I wouldn't expect the earliest I'm expecting him to look right is probably after their bye week.
All right, we got the Chefs at the Vikings. I'm taking the Chiefs minus 3.5. The over under in this game is 52.5. It's a massive over under. 63% of the money is on the Chiefs here. 68% of the bets are on the Chiefs here. So I'm like with the public this time. I'm not fading them this time. First things first, we got to give you guys a Taylor Swift update. It's the most important part of a Chiefs game now. This week on Travis Kelce and Jason Kelsey's podcast, they might have suggested that they were overdoing the Taylor Swift hype. So we might see a few less camera pans over to Taylor Swift during a touchdown. Also, I haven't heard whether or not Taylor Swift will be in the game, in the building in Minnesota. So I wonder how many times they will cut to her, even if she's not in the building. Let us know in the comments if you think it will be over or under 10 Taylor Swift references in this game.
References?
Yeah, references.
Over.
Well, do you want to do pictures? We could do like how many times they show a screenshot of Taylor Swift, or just like how many times Chris Collinsworth or Tony Romo.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that? The NFL is so happy with the crossover promotion that's going on. They're going to, I believe, run ads for her for free. They said this week.
Great, love that.
Yeah, I don't know if that's for her album or her tour or at what capacity. Maybe it's like one of her endorsement commercials or something. But they're actually willing to give her ad time basically because she's apparently such a social force that she's bringing new fans into the sport.
Yeah, well, I guess they showed her movie or whatever on the Jets Jumbotron on Sunday night, and the Jets fans booed him. Go get them, Jets fans. I'm sick of this. This isn't football. I'm serious. This is a serious show. This is a serious podcast. Enough of this pop culture. It's football, man. Anyways, not great from the Chiefs last week. Not great at all from them, but they still escaped with the W. I kind of mentioned this on the head coach episode, but I really feel like this is a thing that's worth mentioning. I think the Jets are just like the best team in the league at confounding teams with great quarterbacks that specifically want to drop back and pass all the time. They made Josh Allen look silly. They made Patrick Mahomes have the worst game of his pretty much entire career, I would say. So I'm chalking it up more to a Jets great defensive performance. And you know what? It is what it is on that one. The Vikings team looks like they've fallen off a cliff. Their passing offense is good with Kirk, JJ, and Jordan Addison when they decided to put him in the game over KJ Osborne, but that's about it. They aren't a very great running team. They aren't very great defensively. They're okay stopping the run sometimes, but that's usually because Brian Flores is sending the blitz all the time, and their pass defense really stinks. They give up a lot of explosive plays because they're constantly blitzing. So I'm getting an all-time franchise at a little over 3 points against bad competition. I'll take it. I think that right now people are still hurt from the Chiefs not covering on Sunday night. It happens. It's part of betting the Chiefs. Is a lot of times they don't cover against inferior competition. There is the idea that they kind of play down to their opponent. And I'm on the wrong side of the hook here too, which I don't love, but it's close enough to 3 that it's fine. I'll take it. The ideal play here would be to just buy an extra point on the Chiefs and do the Chiefs -2.5 alternate spread. But I didn't put that in our contest just because the way we keep track of things, it would just be annoying. So I'm just taking the Chiefs -3.5, and I feel really good about this one. That's why it's in a parlay. Yanni, you got anything on this one?
No, I think you made a really good point about the Jets. John Middlecoff, I always talk about him because he's one of my favorite. He's a former NFL scout. He's on the volume for Colin Cowherd. I really enjoy his perspective on things. I think he's just got a really good read on what's going on. And he said something that it was so brutal this week is you can totally tell what the Jets were aiming for when they built this defense. They wanted to get a lead on people and then cut their pass rush loose and let their corners pick off balls in the back end. That's what the defense was made for, is basically destroying passing games. So I think that's a really good read on the Jets. And if they had blown them out, or if Mahomes even ran it in, if they covered the spread at 10 last week, the spread's probably a little bigger. I would assume it's like 4.5, maybe 5.5. So I think you're getting good value on it. I would be stunned if the Vikings win, but the Vikings are at home. Their backs are against the wall. The thing that I think is sort of interesting about it, I don't know if the Chiefs have the wide receivers this year to take advantage of the Vikings defense. I thought about this game, right? I thought about betting it. The Chiefs receiving core is in like serious trouble. So I think it's interesting, but if I had to bet, I would bet the Chiefs.
What about Mr. Pfizer getting loose in the secondary? You think he's too slow? Or do you think it's going to have to go to like MVS and Sky Moore?
I think it's just this weird mesh. I don't think their team. I think they're almost certainly trading for a receiver because I don't think. I think at any given week someone could do all right, but it's like Rice is probably their best receiver right now, the rookie. If I had to guess one, that's probably it.
Well, they just missed out on Chase Claypool. What a bunch of dummies.
Right. I think. Well, I wonder if that was part of the Dolphins trading for him. But yeah, so I think that's been what their struggle this year has been, is that just the crazy lack of wide receiver talent. I mean, really, it's just Travis Kelce, Mahomes, and Pacheco. But that's more than enough to get it done against the Vikings. All right, it was my absolute privilege to take this as the last leg of the parlay, and that's the Niners 3.5 at home. I did notice, I was actually really surprised when Ted, as I've said before, I try not to go look at where the big money is in games because I feel like that influences my thinking a little too much. I try to kind of come up with my own process. But I always love when we see it and I go, oh my God, look at that. So it's 74% of the bets are on the Niners and 70% of the money. So that is both public sentiment and the sharp sentiment on that. Really cool to see, especially as a big Niners fan, especially in a close game, especially in a game with Super Bowl implications, at least as far as who will represent the NFC. The general consensus in the NFL is there are 3 teams that are head and shoulders above the rest in the NFC: the Niners, the Eagles, the Cowboys. I think based on their rosters, that's absolutely true. And personally, of those 4, I think so far this year, the Niners have looked like the best team. But you really don't know until you see a game like this. And what's so interesting about it, right? The Niners have stuffed the Cowboys 2 years in a row. Brock's most difficult game as a pro was against the Cowboys in the playoffs last year. That was a heart-racing game. It was 19-12, I believe, coming down to the wire before Dak threw that last interception. It does look like their defensive coordinator, what's the guy? I can't believe I'm forgetting his name right now. The Cowboys defensive coordinator. Dan Quinn. It seems like Dan Quinn, because of their time together where he was the head coach and Kyle was the offensive coordinator, it seems like he has a really good understanding and read of what Kyle wants to do offensively and how he stresses out defensive schemes. He plays them really well. So there is certainly risk in this sort of bet. And there's an overarching question here that personally I think will be answered, which is just how good is Brock Purdy? It's kind of the question that's dominating the NFL right now, and it makes me really happy to hear. It really does, because I think it's a great it is such a good sports conversation, right? About talent versus scheme versus opponents versus luck versus there's everything that a good sports conversation consists of. It kind of Brock Purdy is like the nexus of it right now in the NFL, and this week we're going to find out. He's playing a legitimate defense that has they're not as great against the rush, but against the pass, they're excellent. I would assume they're going to blitz Brock pretty heavily. It seems like that's sort of the thing that defensive coordinators are trying against him. Maybe hasn't looked as good on tape against the rush. You know, the Cowboys now, this is their second go around dealing with Brock, which does matter. A lot of these defensive coordinators haven't played Brock twice. This is the second time for Dan Quinn. So a lot going, and Debo's really banged up. I would guess Debo's playing at like 50-60%. So all of these things make it a pretty risky bet. Overall, I think the Cowboys are bullies. I think they're front-running bullies. When they get a lead on someone, they'll tee off. But the one team that played them close, which was the Cardinals, ended up beating them. The Niners matched up really well with the Cardinals. They match up really well with the Cowboys. So give me the Niners at home by 3.5.
The only reason I didn't pick this game is I just didn't want the stress. I was just like, I want to kick my feet up on this one and watch, because, yeah, this is going to be a great game. This is the best it gets in the NFC, just about. And yeah, I'm really excited for it. Just as a fan, I hope the Niners win. Like, take the gambling out of it. Like, this is a huge game, and like for the Niners, right? Their whole thing is they want to get home field advantage this year. They've traditionally started slow, like the last 2 years. They have much better teams than they've kind of started out, and this year they're finally kind of looking good at the beginning of the year. So this is a huge test for them. This is a huge test for Brock. This is a huge test for the boys, and I'm looking forward to it.
Did the difference between potentially going to Dallas for an NFC championship or them coming here is huge. That cannot be understated. Everything's down on the line for this game. It's going to be as good as football gets. It really is. A little concerned, the Niners corners aren't quite as healthy as they have been. Tyron Smith is back for the Cowboys. Debo being banged up certainly affects it, but Ayuk looks plenty capable of carrying the slack. We'll see. I'm excited, though. This is the last leg. So because I fell in this ditch the last 2 weeks and I'm down 170, I'm going in on the parlay. This is the last leg of my parlay, and I feel way better about the Bills and Dolphins. This is going to be an interesting evening for me if those two hit. I'm sweating it out here, but we'll see. I don't see how they're going to respond to CMC. I don't see them having a good one for that.
Yeah, I think the Cowboys had a decent Sunday against Ramondre and the Patriots, but the Patriots don't really run the ball very well. The last team that ran the ball pretty well was the Cardinals, and they just shredded the Cowboys. So this could be a big CMC game. Important to note, though, last year in the playoffs, they kind of shut down CMC a little bit. I think that was like the focus of their game plan. So I'll be interested to see like if the game plan looks a little different. Like CMC just looks like he's on a totally another level now with having the whole offseason to work in the system. So we'll see. I'm so excited about this game. I'm going to be wearing my new Nick Bosa jersey for this one.
Yeah, well, there's an interesting difference though, right? Because the Giants actually came up real strong in the box too. But what does Brock do now this year that he wasn't doing as much last year? He's throwing it 40 yards down the field. To Debo, to Ayuk, I think he's had 3 or 4 30 to 40-yard throws the last 2 weeks. So it'll be interesting. It's a punch-counterpunch thing, man. We'll see.
All right, last but not least, we got the Packers going into Vegas to play the Raiders. I'm taking the Packers money line. The spread is the Packers plus 1.5. So I'm doing the same thing again that I've done 3 times now, and I'm going to continue to do it. When you have an underdog and it's only 1 point, like, I don't care about the point. I'll just take the underdog because it gives me better money. And I believe we said at the top of the show, right? The odds changed. It used to be minus 102. Now it's plus 114. So I'm getting over 2 to 1 just to give away a point. That's fine. It's the Raiders. Yeah, the pick is Packers money line. The over-under is 44.5 points. 82% of the money is on the Packers against the spread, and 92% of the money is on the Packers money line. And then 76% of the bets are on the Packers ATS, and 63% of the bets are on the Packers money line. So we got a little bit of a spread here, right? Like people who are betting Packers money line are going bigger on it because it's the bet that makes the most sense. I'm happy to see the numbers finally add up a little bit. Jimmy G is back from concussion protocol. He got one full practice in today. We're shooting this on Friday before the game on Monday night. It makes me like this bet even more. I probably wouldn't be on this bet if it was Aiden O'Connell playing because we've talked about it time and time again. Jimmy is just the destroyer of franchises. Every time he dashes a franchise's hopes and dreams, his chin gets just a little bit more chiseled every time. It's really sad.
It keeps him young. It's like a vampire that feeds on fans' happiness.
Yes.
It keeps him young. It keeps his hog girthy. He fucking.
The Raiders are just in complete disarray. Devontae Adams is looking to get out of town. Like Yanni was talking about this during the head coach episode. It's a disaster there. It's a disaster, and the Packers haven't looked great so far, but there's still some hope in the building. The Packers are thinking, right, because they're sitting at 2-2. They lost to the Lions, obviously, who now have a game on them in the division and the tiebreaker. But the Packers are thinking they can get into the wild card or win the division here. So, like, we have a team in total disarray, and at least a team with a little bit of hope. So I think that's worth betting. And Jordan Love has looked serviceable in stretches. So I went on record and I said I don't think Jordan Love's very good. And I don't really think that he's been very good, and I don't think he's going to be like a starting caliber NFL quarterback. But like, man, he has these stretches that he puts together where he makes the throws and does what he needs to do to get his team back in the game. Coming down 17-0 on the Saints in one quarter to last week, looking at least better against the Lions after halftime. I mean, I don't know. If he can put together a whole game of like at least looking decent or not making boneheaded decisions that are gonna like give the game away, I really like the Packers here. I think they just have a roster advantage. Even though their D is underperforming a little bit, they still have a lot of guys on there. I think Jair Alexander should be back this week. Is that right? Have you paid attention to that or no?
Mm.
I think Jair's back this week. Don't quote me on that. But yeah,
I didn't check the report.
Jimmy's going to give him a chance. This is what Jimmy does. Jimmy has these turnover-worthy plays. He does it all the time. It's so interesting. If you ever watch Jimmy Garoppolo, when he drops back in the pocket, the more he goes like this with the football, and the more his like feet move, like Happy Feet for like the Penguin movie, like it's almost an interception every time. It's amazing. Like just keep your eye on that in this game. Once you start seeing his feet moving, you're gonna know that Jair is lurking. So yeah, like I was saying before, if Love protects the ball, I don't see it going sideways. Packers to win the game against this Raiders team, I think that's fine, and it's over 2-1, so I'll take it. Yanni, you got anything on this one? Allegedly, the Sharps, Simon Hunter and Chad Millman, like the Raiders here. Chad Millman said the Raiders should be favorites very soon. I think the line flipped. Is there any reason to like this Raiders team in this spot?
I mean, I guess you're right about Bakhtiari barely ever playing for the team, but I do think they're gonna the Packers. Their line had serious problems pass blocking last week, so I would expect Max Crosby to have a big game this week. I think, probably, and the Devontae Adams revenge game. But if Devontae's being shadowed by Jair all game, I mean that's really really tough. That's the only I could just see the Devontae Adams revenge game and a Max Crosby huge game. I think the Packers have one more injury on their O-line, I believe. They're pretty unhealthy up front. Aaron Jones didn't look like he was right coming off his hamstring last week. I would expect him to be a lot more healthy this week. I think you probably have the right side of it. And the other thing to remember is the Raiders don't play home games. There's no such thing as Raiders home games. Fans fly into Vegas and fill it with other stadiums. The Steelers game was way louder for the Steelers than it was for the Raiders. Packers fans are rabid, and they cannot get to games at Lambeau Field. It's really hard with the way the ticket sales work there. So I would expect it to be like a 70-30 Packers game in the crowd too. So no, I think you have the right side of it.
That is a good point. I didn't think about all the cheeseheads going to Vegas and stuff.
Dude, they will all go. You watch what the colors look like in that stadium. I guarantee it. Dude, the Steelers came out. Like, the Packers games are so hard to get into because of that weird season ticket holder thing they do. It's like some people wait 60 years to get their season tickets. Yeah, watch. It'll be full of Packers fans. Very tough game.
All right. I think that's going to do it for us. Do we have any more? No, we don't. All right.
Did you hear Tyreek Hill wants to start a pornography career after he retires in the NFL?
Yeah, dude.
What's your
Cam Newton came out. It was like, my hog's not that big. I thought that was very funny.
I'd for sure check it out if he does. And I just throw it out there. End the week.
That's why they call him the cheetah.
Yes, sir.
Finish fast. All right. If you guys made it through the entire show, thank you. This one was a bit of a... It was not my best outing, but I was probably pretty happy about this 5-0 week. Let's see if we can do it again. Go in the comments. Let us know how many Taylor Swift references you think there will be in the game. And, yeah, we'll catch you on Tuesday for the front office episode.
Thanks, guys.